Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, as you all know by now, I love busting myths and misconceptions on this podcast. And if you think that financial planning is clunky, traditional and outdated, then I'm going to try and convince you otherwise today in just 25 minutes and learn how technology is changing all those tired old stereotypes. Because BetterTradeOff is a Singapore-headquartered FinTech startup that is aiming to revolutionize financial planning with a holistic life planning solution that simplifies and demystifies the financial planning process. And their direct-to-consumer solution, called Up, is providing people with a do-it-yourself tool for exploring and understanding the different financial choices and outcomes that they have at their disposal, ultimately allowing people to make better financial decisions. And they've also won the Global FinTech Hackcelerator, which was organised by the Monetary Authority of Singapore. So we can speak with Shannon from BetterTradeOff. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Shannon. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, hi. I'm Shannon Cullum from BetterTradeOff, or BTO as we call it, Singapore-headquartered FinTech. I wear two hats at BTO. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer, the CMO across the entire business, and I have a broader role as the end-to-end business leader for the direct-to-consumer side of our business and our consumer brand Up. I'm relatively new to FinTech, having spent just under a year at BTO, but prior to BTO, I spent a year and a half working in MarTech, and before that, many years in the very untechy world of advertising, working for big traditional ad agencies like Saatchi & Saatchi and places like China, Indonesia, Thailand, Russia. I started my career in Canada, where I'm from, and I did a stint in the US as well. Along the way, I've gotten involved with numerous tech startups as both an investor and an advisor. So I've always had kind of a special relationship with tech. And so that's a bit about me. And again, Neil, thanks for having me today.
No, thanks for joining me. I thought I was spinning a lot of plates and wearing a few hats, but it sounds like an incredibly hectic life that you've got there. But it's something that you're really passionate about. Like, it just seems to come across there.
It's been fun, for sure.
And for people that are tuning in and hearing about BetterTradeOff or BTO for the very first time, can you just set the scene and tell me a little bit more about the kind of problems that you set out to solve there?
Yeah, so we, in a nutshell, we use technology to help people make better decisions, or better trade-offs, if you like. More specifically, we develop software solutions that simplify the financial planning process with the goal of making it possible for anyone, regardless of financial acumen, to make better financial decisions. The founder started the company on the belief that complexity and a lack of transparency in traditional financial planning meant that a lot of people, in fact, most people, weren't getting sound advice or even engaging in the financial planning process. You'd be shocked at how few people have actually ever met with a financial planner in a place like Singapore. So our solution is designed to simplify and demystify financial planning, and in doing so, make it accessible to more people. And we deploy the solution across sort of three unique offerings. As a white label enterprise solution for financial institutions, so helping big banks and insurance companies accelerate their digitization, and giving them a new innovative sales channel and a platform for deeper customer engagement, which is the top priority for most traditional financial institutions these days. We also have a SaaS solution for financial advisors, providing them with an interactive platform that helps clients better see and understand the value of their advice and helps them build trust through transparency. And then finally, we have a free do-it-yourself financial planning platform for consumers, which is Up.
And I think one of the things that I'd love to talk with you about today is the somewhat misconception that financial planning is often perceived as clunky, traditional, and outdated. So maybe we could shatter that today. And can you tell me a little bit more about how BetterTradeOff is actually using technology to transform that exact experience that I've just mentioned there?
Yeah, I think financial planning works. The issue is there's not a lot of conviction and trust in the process. So in a way, what we do is we give people a platform that lets them see for themselves the power of financial planning. So whether they're using it with an institution, a relationship manager at a bank, or a financial advisor, or doing it on their own, we allow people to really see the power of it, which is a big step toward people using it and taking action and ultimately making better financial decisions. So it's less about financial planning being broken. It's more about how it's basically brought to the user in the traditional sense. So our solution is highly interactive and it's very, very visual. So its greatest piece is that it allows people to really truly see and understand the impact of different decisions and outcomes in a way that's incredibly transparent and very intuitive. So even things like the effect of compound interest or the impact of inflation on their long-term wealth, which are, financial planning basics, which most people really underappreciate and don't understand. With our tool, it's very demonstrative and very easy to see that impact. One of the things that the tool does is it allows people to simulate different financial scenarios. So something like buying a new home or building a retirement plan, or hazards like what would happen if they were to lose their job, or if the core breadwinner in the family was to die, what would be the state of their financial situation. And it's very easy to do. It's drag and drop. They can drag in an investment or purchase a property and add it to their timeline and see the immediate impact on their long-term cash flow, their savings, their net worth. So in that sense, it helps them set financial goals and, on their own in a very simple way, explore different strategies or actions for reaching them. We like to say it's the future at your fingertips. And this gamification of the process is really critical because it has a strong educational aspect to it without being preachy or being professorial. People learn by doing, and that really makes a big difference. And that transparency that comes through from exploring different scenarios and seeing the outcome for themselves is what ultimately builds conviction and trust in the process. So the other thing is, while the process is simple, behind the scenes, there's a tool that's taking care of the complicated stuff, like incorporating local market data, when we run simulations, taking into account things like citizenship and other factors that affect local tax laws, et cetera. So the process is simple, but the plan itself is highly detailed and robust.
And there is so much talk nowadays in the tech world about hyper-personalization. I did see that mentioned alongside BetterTradeOff. So again, for the people listening, hearing about you for the first time, what is the role of hyper-personalization in what BetterTradeOff is doing? And why do you think it's so important?
Yeah, I think traditional financial planning at its worst is a one-size-fits-all approach based on rules of thumb and traditional assumptions about retirement. But the reality is one size doesn't fit all of us, and traditional rules of thumb generally aren't adequate, especially today when we live in a world where people live longer and aspire not just to be alive longer, but to truly live life to its fullest in their latest years. So in this new reality, I think, what does retirement really mean? Are you going to be sitting on a porch sipping lemonade when you're 70? Or are you going to be learning how to scuba dive, or are you going to be starting your own scuba dive school? So, people don't see the later years in their life the same. So these rules of thumb don't really apply. And the truth is, it's really not about financial planning at all. It's about life planning. And life planning means moving beyond traditional financial calculators to a more nuanced approach that takes into account not just how long you're going to live, but how you're going to live. And that requires a platform that can accommodate essentially endless variables and possibilities. So For this reason, we've strived to build a solution that, while simple, is incredibly comprehensive. I mean, it encompasses all aspects of a person's life, and not just their financial life, but things like their travel plans, for example. The user can build highly detailed profiles, including detailed living expenses right down to the dollar. And it includes options for users to customize their plan with what we call exceptional expenses. So they can include things like weddings or home renovations and other life plans, whether they're big or small. So I think in many respects, our solution is the answer to the challenge of bringing hyper-personalization to financial planning at scale.
I love that. And it's so true what you're saying there, how we all see our later lives completely different to previous generations. And of course, there's a lot of talk and especially hype as well around the power of digital experiences that delight now. But can you tell me more about why you believe that can actually genuinely improve lives?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, I think a digital experience that delights someone, even if that's all it does, is already, improving lives. And I think of something like TikTok. But obviously, we see all around us technology that's doing a lot more than that. And I think in most cases, it comes down to one of two things, which is technology that saves us time with things we don't want to do, like searching for a taxi or schlepping it to the store to buy groceries, or even if we're buying something online, having to spend more than a few seconds paying for it. I mean, I, for one, hate shopping, so I'm all for frictionless commerce and being able to pay for something by holding my phone up to my face. I mean, that's my kind of tech. But, or it's about technology that enables us to do something that previously we couldn't, like becoming an online shop owner ourselves with something like Shopify. Or not being afraid to start a small business because platforms like QuickBooks make it easy for us to do our own accounting. Or in the case of Up, not being afraid to leave your current job to start that small business, because platforms like ours allow you to build a personal financial plan that makes that transition possible. And even more important, perhaps, that shows you it's possible, and in doing so gives you the confidence to take that leap. So we like to talk about unleashing possible when we talk about Up. This idea that with Up, you can build a plan. And when you do so, you in effect at that time unleash a new possibility, like being able to buy a home you didn't think you can afford, or leaving a job you hate to do something you love, for example.
So what's your grand vision at BetterTradeOff, and what's next for the company, and your technology in order to make everything that we're talking about today happen?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we have three distinctive lines of business. The first is the enterprise solution. And here, we've now completed several successful pilots with major global institutions and are working on long-term licensing deals. And this is going to allow us to bring the solution to new countries and a vast number of new customers through these partnerships and white labeling our solution. So that's a huge step. We've also recently launched our solution for financial advisors in Singapore with 6 major firms on board. This is the B2B side of our business. And we're now looking to expand this offering in Singapore and soon into new markets. And then we have Up, our direct-to-consumer solution, which we launched in Singapore in November. This is a free do-it-yourself life planning platform, which already has over 10,000 users. I think one of the big keys is going to be the development of our partner API portal that will allow us to better integrate new product partners and other fintechs into the platform. This is critical in order to enhance the user experience and also to allow people to not just build plans, but action the plan on our platform. So imagine building a plan and then seamlessly having the product offering there that you need to execute that plan. What that also does, of course, is create a unique, one-of-a-kind marketplace for those partners. And so that's a big part of the long-term vision for Up. And then with COVID-19, obviously that's accelerated things a little bit for us. It's made what we're doing very, very relevant. And obviously with that impacting so many people, and especially the poorest people, we're also exploring partnerships that will allow us to take our solution to countries like the Philippines and Indonesia, and how we might do that and what that offering might look like. And places like that where we feel we can have an even greater impact on people's lives and probably society as a whole. And then finally, because we operate across all specters of the business, enterprise, B2B, and direct to consumer, I feel this gives us a unique insight into the industry as a whole. And that, gives us an opportunity to accelerate the development of the platform in general. I just think seeing financial planning on the institutional level, the advisor level, and the direct to consumer level is going to allow us to take things to another level. And we're quite unique in that way. There aren't, as I'm aware, any competitors that play in all three of the spaces.
Incredible. I love what you're doing here. Finally, though, putting your CMO hat on just for a moment, how does building a tech brand differ from building a brand for a traditional product and a traditional service? Because you're someone that's been in both worlds. So I'm curious what's different there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, when we talk about traditional marketing, we talk about the 5 Ps: people, place, price, promotion, and product. So when you're selling shampoo, for example, product is a subset of marketing, because product innovation in the world of shampoo is generally 100% marketing driven, which is why the shampoo aisle in most supermarkets is 50 meters long. But when you're selling tech, generally speaking, marketing is a subset of product, because in the tech world, the product experience is generally so much more immersive that it's really impossible to separate the product experience from the brand experience. So that product experience is generally what you take to market. So rather than the traditional model of driving awareness, it's about driving brand experience. And marketing becomes about either getting that experience in people's hands or removing the barriers to trial of that experience. And the classic example is the Apple Store, which is, one giant brand experience expo for Apple, designed to suck you in and bewitch you with Apple magic. And they know that if they get that device in your hand, it's game over. So I think that kind of way of marketing, where you're bringing your brand experience to the forefront, is the focus in the tech world in a much different way than it is in the traditional world. The other difference, which you really feel, is that in the tech world, we tend to compare one user experience to another, even if it's for a completely unrelated category, because I think on some level we see them all as tech. So we expect the digital experience we have with our bank to be as frictionless and user-friendly as booking a car with Uber is, whether that's fair or not. But we don't generally compare the experience we have with Head & Shoulders shampoo to the experience we have with Coke. So when you're building a solution like ours, even though it's a deeply complex process and a do-it-yourself financial planning platform, you are on a certain level being compared to Uber or Amazon or Revolut. So in many respects, it's far more daunting. And that product experience, and you mentioned the word delight, is so fundamental and core. And you need to always go beyond utility. And that's such a big part of marketing, I think, in the tech world.
Absolutely. And I've loved chatting with you today. But before I do let you go, could I just ask that you remind everyone listening of where they can find BTO online, and also contact your team if they are left with any questions after listening to this interview today?
Yeah, great. So they can learn about BetterTradeOff at BetterTradeOff.com, or contact us at contact@BetterTradeOff.com. And best of all, they can try our direct-to-consumer solution for themselves, absolutely free, Neil, at upplan.sg. And I hope they will. And thanks again, Neil, for having me.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining me today. And like you said very early on in our conversation, financial planning shouldn't be perceived as being clunky, traditional and outdated. And it's actually something that's incredibly important to probably everybody listening, and therefore needs to have the most beautiful and seamless user experience. So I've just loved chatting with you today about how user experience should not be limited to one sector alone. And I think you've done a beautiful job of stating that case today. But thanks for joining me today, Shannon. I appreciate it.
Thanks again, Neil.
Interactive and highly visual. I just loved hearing more about how Up is easy and fun to use, but allowing you to build a financial plan in just 15 minutes. and that the white label B2B solution has already been deployed across multiple markets, including Singapore and Philippines, UAE and Switzerland, providing some of the world's leading financial institutions with this collaborative tool that allows advisors to work together with clients on a plan to finance and protect their dreams. And upon listening to Shannon speak there today, maybe financial planning should no longer be perceived as clunky, traditional and outdated, because there are other options out there. And if you've encountered any different options, or you've got any insights or expertise you'd like to share with me, email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk, because it's your feedback, your opinions and comments that matter just as much as mine or the guests today. So please keep sending those messages in. And while I'm waiting, I'm going to prepare for tomorrow's guest, who's already lined up and ready to go. So hopefully you'll join me again tomorrow. But until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.